Before we get started with today's podcast, we'd like to ask returning listeners to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast platform, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you really enjoy it, share a link to this podcast with friends or family who would enjoy hearing our weekly discussions about basketball and basketball culture. Now, on to the show.
Isn't it amazing when Michigan can keep this game to a 19-foot 9-inch game inside that three-point line? It's all theirs. Nice move by Steve Fisher here. Turn it into the 19-9.
Welcome to the 19-9 podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Meyer. I'm here with Robert Wire and John Zlavinskis, a couple of returning co-hosts / just people on the podcast. We've got kind of a potpourri tonight of topics. We're going to be talking a little NBA draft recap, name, image, likeness, college basketball preview, Team USA, free agency, kind of anything we want to get into. Just a end of summer wrap up, basically. And I just want to say hello. We've got the video element going. So what's going on, guys?
Oh, not much. Just enjoying. Oh, did you see how you played? I've been what?
This guy right at
I watched. Did you see?
No hesitation.
Hey, well, no, I was watching a little bit today. They're not supposed to have it videoed.
Yeah.
And the guy from Hoosier Hysterics was using his phone. And
Yeah, I
got
heard
shut
that.
down.
Yeah.
But it was pretty cool though. I don't know why they wouldn't show that.
There's some weird rule like they can't film in a casino. It's like in a casino, so they can't film while it's in a casino. I guess I don't understand that, but I mean I also don't work in a Bahamanian. Is that right? Bahamanian casino.
That's right.
Anybody know?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe that can be your next calling.
Yeah.
Just to learn the casino life.
Casino lifestyle.
Yeah.
I'm in.
That's right.
I want to be a barista.
Well, I just want to know when they're going to send me to the Bahamas
well, yeah,
for 19-9. I can go and watch games and report back.
We'll get a hold of Josh on that one.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. Do some Gonzo reporting.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you got your phone. You got your tech.
Get like a wicked sunburn the first day, just like lobstered out. And you're like in paralysis watching
that's
basketball.
not a bad idea though, because then they might not be looking at your phone. They just are like, "Oh my God, look how burned that guy is." And meanwhile, your phone's just out, and they're just like staring at your sunburn.
Yeah, I think that's a medicinal phone he has out. I don't know. I can't recall that one.
Is he using that to reflect sunlight? He needs it.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, let's get into it. Let's talk a little NBA draft to start, since that's the kind of going furthest back. We got to see some of these guys in summer league. So I guess first, what did you guys think of how the draft played out, and then if you've got to see them on summer league, what do you think of the guys you've seen so far?
You can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest upset, was Suggs falling, right, from 4 to 5, and he's been shut down, right, for the rest of summer league.
Yeah, hurt his hand or something
with injury. That's right. Yeah. So, you love the draft stories, right, of players who get passed up by so many teams, and every time they play them, they want to. Yeah, that's right. They want to really take them to task. So I guess that will be, like an interesting storyline. But then, he's also playing with the Magic, so it will be tough to, that's
it'll be an interesting storyline for the first 10 games until they've lost 9 out of 10.
That's right. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe he hangs on to it for 10 years when he's off the Magic and he's, with a contender and still beating up on the Raptors.
For sure.
So, yeah.
No, the summer league's just so hard to gauge to me because I think like the MVP last year, the summer league didn't even make an NBA team. So all these players are unbelievable players in their own right? It's like little fractions that they're better. Like when you're in the NBA to the next level down, it's only fractions, right? Like split second, you get a shot off or you don't get a shot off. Or, people are just a little bit faster or a little bit more athletic. Like, I was watching.
So what about your boy, Cade Cunningham? Because you made a big deal.
He played good.
Really? I thought he's been disappointing so far. He looks slow.
No, man. He did look slow, but it isn't like Luka's fast. I mean, it's all about using your body, right?
No. Don't nobody.
I mean,
this is like the Jordan thing. No one's allowed to compare anybody to Luka for a while.
I mean,
that guy's the best player in the world.
I didn't say he was Luka. I said Luka's not fast.
Yeah, well, so what?
Like you said, he's if you're good at multiple things, and you know how to use
Shaq couldn't shoot 3-pointers either.
Oh, come on now. This is. I mean, you're gonna judge him off a couple of summer league games.
No, but I feel like my picks are bearing out. That's what you're looking for in summer league. It's like, am I right? That's all I care about.
You want that immediate gratification.
Immediately,
that has like nothing to do with it, right?
That's right. I want to stamp it immediately.
I haven't seen Mobley. Has he been good?
He's looked good, yeah. I mean, everything that you thought. Like, it's different for big guys. I just think that in summer league, you need good guards, right? And in summer league, you have the opposite of that. You have like the 3rd, 4th, 5th string guys. Like, that's not what you need. When he gets, their 2 starting guards in there, he's gonna look a lot better.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I was going to ask you guys, how do you do that one? So summer league, right? Like, has all of these players that may, never make like an NBA roster, and there's, transition. You mentioned like there's a difference in player talent by fractions, and then there's also like opportunity, right? Players on a team where they'll actually be able to, shine or use their skill sets, or coach sets, zeroing in, and maybe not, right? Like at summer league, maybe it's about just kind of cycling and seeing who pops. But like, I can't wrap my head around the summer league experience, the product, because it's too many variables to pay attention to. And then, it doesn't necessarily translate. Maybe we'll see you at summer league next year.
Right.
And then maybe not see you in the NBA, Yeah. So I don't know. Is it that you do what you did, which is to watch for the stars, and then see whether or not your draft picks are accomplished? Or do you like try to buy in and try to say like, oh man, this guy was drafted in the 2nd round. I really liked him in college. I hope that, he makes it eventually. Like, is that too painful to like try to engage that? I know I have a lot of big picture questions about draft and summer league, but what do you 2 think?
I mean, I think that summer league's good for getting these guys experience with better. I mean, summer league is going to be better than college, right? I mean, the players are going to be better, so they're going to be more tested. So I would say the scouts, they can tell if a player's playing in summer league, and you can tell the players that stick out, right? Like they may not hit a couple shots, but like I went and watched OG play at IU, and you could just tell when he was on the court that he was a man amongst boys, right? Like I think that maybe that factor helps with some of these guys in summer league, but maybe the good thing for these guys, if they have a good summer league and they don't make it to the NBA, maybe they go play overseas and make a lot of money, it's opportunities.
That's interesting.
But you got to think about this, like this is a reference, like TJ Warren played unbelievable in the bubble, right?
Right.
So the summer league, if a player plays unbelievable, maybe they don't make the NBA, but they make a huge contract to go play overseas because they're a name, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even if you're like the MVP of the summer league, that's still you've brought something to the table, right? Where you can go, hey, look, I did this in the summer league. I can help your team, win.
I like
their
that.
league.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think it's just fun to see. Like, it's fun to just watch basketball, but then it's interesting to see who struggles. I think that's the easier thing. Like, if you're struggling in summer league, like Anthony Bennett a few years ago is like the clearest example. Like, if you can't cut it in summer league, and especially like the 2nd year guys, like if you're coming back the 2nd year and you're at summer league and you're not just absolutely dominating after a year in the NBA, like it might be over for you. Like, maybe you're just going to get lucky and develop really late, but you should absolutely dominate as a 2nd year guy in summer league. And really, like, if you're a high level rookie and going to be really good eventually, you should just be able to walk out on the court and be awesome. That's just what I think.
Yeah. Take over. Absolutely. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
All right, let's shift gears and talk a little bit. I think it'd be interesting to just check in on the name, image, likeness thing a little bit, and then just talk a little bit of college basketball. So you brought up IU in the Bahamas, but Bobby had me watching Miller Kopp too. Like, he's doing some stuff on his YouTube, and there's just like everyone's just trying stuff out now, which is great, I think. But I still don't know. I don't know. Like, I want to see where you guys are at. Like, do you guys still think this is a good thing? How do you like it so far? And then, is there a possibility that we end up hating it? I think that for me, that's where I'm at. I think I actually might end up not liking this. I think it could turn college basketball into something that I don't want, because I feel like it's a very separate thing from the NBA, and that there's something about that I like. And I think that maybe this is shifting towards the NBA in a way that I don't really care for. I don't know.
I think that I'm not going to like it. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. Like transfer pool, like what just happened this year before they got money, right?
Right.
Like total madness, right? Like it takes away from, I get that you want to give the players empowerment to make choices, but if a team's recruiting a player for 6 years, right, they're invested, because I mean, it's crazy how early they recruit these players now, right?
Right.
Like they get in the door. So like 6 years might be too much, maybe 4 years. So like they get this player, he comes in and he doesn't step it to the plate the first year, but he's building on, but he's mad because he's always got to play, right? And then he just, besides staying with the team, now another team's going to say, hey, like this is an example. I'm not dogging Kentucky or anything. I'm just saying, like, Kentucky says, hey.
Good, because we've got shorts by Kentucky coming up. So
no, I'm not dogging. I'm just using an example. Any team, any team
no longer allowed to dog
that's
them.
got a big boosters was like, hey, if you come to us, this is the average a player gets for their name and likeness. Like that's going to be the sales pitch now, right? So it's going to be more like these top teams, and I'm not complaining because I believe IU is going to benefit off of this.
Yeah.
But like these top teams are going to be able to say, listen, if you come, we're going to be able to make you this much money. And the other thing that I think that is going to happen, it's already starting to happen, is you saw the two players that are reclassifying, right?
No, who's that? Oh, yeah, Imani Bates and Jalen
I mean,
Durant. Has Bates done it yet? He was talking about it.
I'm pretty sure he's doing it.
Okay.
He just hasn't picked the team, I don't think.
So he's going to Memphis probably with Durant.
And I'm sure that the reason for that is why stay in high school, take a chance of getting hurt when you can go, and he'll probably make $500,000 or more going to Memphis or wherever he goes. And I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like if you're these kids and like that Bates, I think he's got so many followers.
Right.
So you're become an influencer, and now you can make money off of that. I mean, these guys might make. I mean, I saw that the Alabama guy, quarterback or whatever, he's like making over $1 million or something, and he hasn't even threw a pass yet. So I mean,
what does passing have to do with being an influencer?
That's what I'm saying, though.
Point.
Is now the influencer thing. That's like the Miller Kopp thing, right? Like that's what he's doing. He's trying to build up his base to get more followers, so then he can become an influencer and make more money. Even though that he may never play in the NBA, if he plays at IU for 2 years, his second year, maybe he makes a couple $100,000 just being an influencer.
Yeah. Johnny, what do you think?
Yeah, I guess I have mixed feelings about it. First of all, I love I was watching some of Miller Kopp's videos, and I mean, I think he only has a couple on. I guess, like, for me, there were a couple of points I liked about it. I liked kind of the nostalgia of being back on campus, with him doing first person, stuff. And you're just like, oh, that's cool. I love his magic tricks.
There's Assembly Hall. Oh, yeah, his magic trick was great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I thought that was like cool and personable, and, kind of allowed for this access to an athlete that you get at the pro level, right? You see their social media. I empathize with college fans who feel like this is the death of amateur sports, and that the true, kind of nostalgia of players playing for the love of the game to further their career, but then also to grow with a team and win a championship and be part of a legacy, maybe represent your state.
Name on the jersey, not on the back of the back of the jersey.
That's right. All of these kind of pieces, you could always go home, kind of these, especially, at IU, right? Yep. These, kind of trademarks of what was part of their program. So I get that. But I also think too that, it's not bivariate, right? Like we're on a spectrum of professional athletes, and recent FBI reports would reveal that we didn't have, amateur basketball at that level anyways. Students receiving duffel bags full of cash to go play at schools,
Wait, is that, do people know about that?
Well, yeah, I mean,
happened, though.
like that's happening. And so I
If you're at
think, Bobby,
Louisville,
totally
you're
right.
receiving other things.
There's good, well, right. And there are, there are stories about, like really, raucous college visits for high school students, and Bobby, I think you're right. Like, now teams are going to set up these kind of shadow firms to pool, booster money to, essentially contract students to make money and say, if you come sign with, our club, you're going to get a set amount of money. I think, for me, I think that's a little bit more equitable. Players are getting free college while their coaches were making millions of dollars, and without, not all players were going to translate to professional success, to be able to make similar amounts of money. So, I like that element of it, although it leaves colleges and coaches off the hook, right? Like, they still get all the money, all the revenue. They don't have to split it with the students. And now they get to say, well, they're going to get their money elsewhere.
Right.
So we're not going to have to worry about it. Yeah. Right. So I don't know, so I guess there's, that I guess kind of reality that we're still shifting or moving into that dimension. It will be interesting, right? Because now the question is like, is booster money infinite? And some people would think maybe it seems to be like, right. Like, so a school like Texas that hasn't had football success in some time, but has deep pockets for boosters. Maybe they're going to be able to start paying a lot of their players a lot more money than other clubs. But, eventually, right, it's going to be an arms race, and boosters are going to have to say, wait, I don't have another $1 million to pay for this player.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? And then there will be, an actual market for these players. So I don't know.
I think it's actually just going to be more about like, is it just like cutting up the pie because it's just like, here's the amount of money and now I'm going to divvy it up differently. Right. It's not going to be going to all of the different, maybe instead of like going towards the new facilities every year, now it's going to go toward I'm going to break off a piece and buy some apparel from this kid, or however, he's going to get a pizza commercial for me. So I think, I wonder if it like grows, it's sort of is this the rising tide where we're going to lift a bunch of athletes and they're going to have money, or does it come out of, is it just reallocating the amount that's already being spent? Like I don't, that's what I don't know. It's like, Now will universities be scrambling to like update their facilities because now the boosters are like, well, I could give it to the university, but I'd rather, I've already given X amount to all these players that we got coming in. So you guys need to come up with that. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask you too, a little bit about the influencer angle. So I don't spend a lot of time on like college basketball message boards. Like, these college athletes are not as famous in my world. Do you think that, but it appears to me, or I think that there might be like an attention span, where like there just are only so many players you can follow. And eventually they're going to kind of melt away as some students will become influencers because they're interesting. And others are just going to have really boring accounts where they're going to talk about shakes or watches or whatever, they're trying to hawk. But, do you think that a lot of students are going to be able to build sustaining individual brands, or are they going to kind of just disappear in a sea of, students who, have just publicized their Instagram account?
I mean, I don't think it's going to be like a crazy amount of kids that can benefit hugely off of it. But like the LeBron James' son, Bronny or whatever his name is, like he probably has, who knows, 10 million followers, something crazy. So like he'll probably now he can make money off of that, right? Like where before he couldn't. So now I don't know how the rule works, but can you make that money in high school now?
So it's weird. You can actually make at least some amount of that money in high school, depending on what you're doing. So you could be like I don't know, they've got the overtime league. You can do name, image, likeness. Like there's nothing that says that you can't do that as as a high school kid too. I don't know.
But I mean, the thing that was Miller Kopp, right? Like he's not going to get rich off of it, right? Like, but there's enough IU followers if it starts picking up that he could probably make a little bit off of it, right?
Yeah.
Like the YouTube videos, isn't it like if you play so long, you make, I don't really know how it works, but don't if you play a video so long, you make so much money if they use a commercial or something of that nature?
Well, I mean, the plays aren't going to be, and we might be getting into the weeds here, but the plays, he's not going to make it like that. He'd make it by like getting a sponsor, basically. Like someone would sponsor, he would do it because someone in the IU community would sponsor him to continue doing it. And that would be how, and they would throw him some.
I mean,
I
just like seeing the insight and seeing some of the players and
the
learning,
camaraderie is kind of
learning about them. And
yeah,
I mean, then at least
like
you can put like, you could put more than just a face you see if they hit or miss a shot.
Yeah, I do.
So you can kind of see a little background to them.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. I like seeing, I like, Aaron, what you said, the camaraderie is great. I like seeing, him, fist bumping his teammates, watching them get psyched about Chipotle, like that kind of
the
inside stuff. It's like really
the Chipotle
fun.
was great.
I was like, man, that's ridiculous. They get some good stuff, don't they?
Yeah, I was dying. they got the full buffet there.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, let's talk a little Team USA. Give kind of first impressions of what you guys thought of Team USA. They were much maligned, I think, at the first, and then ended up bringing it home anyways. So, I don't know. I mean, I think that I'm kind of interested to see if you guys feel the same way as I do. I think that everyone always says, "Oh, the world's catching up," and then we end up winning, and didn't look that hard.
I mean, I think the world's catching up, but I think they're catching up because a lot of them play together for so long when they're younger and everything, so they have more of a team chemistry than we do. And I feel like we don't necessarily always get the best players, right? We're fortunate that probably the best player in the world right now, Kevin Durant, decided to play, because without him, we're not winning.
Right.
And at the beginning we struggled, but we also didn't have Holiday or Booker. I mean, the thing about it is like Lillard's an unbelievable player, but he's not a defensive player at all.
Right.
So like in the NBA, you can get away with it. You can mask it. But when you play teams overseas that are used to playing with each other forever, and they're all about the fundamentals and not one-on-one, your defense shows if you don't play it. Like you can only hide so much.
Yeah, fair.
So. I thought Team USA this year was a pretty tough watch, right? Like either it was a blowout and it was totally unengaging, or it was a close game and it seemed like it was due to U.S. underperformance. Other teams had standout stars or had good team defense, that was challenging the U.S. a bit. But we were just missing shot after shot after shot, which made the games close. Like the France upset, in our pool play, just seemed like because the U.S. couldn't take the game, by the reins and kind of take it over. I was really surprised.
They had Durant in foul trouble too that game. I mean, I think that's the difference between that and the championship is that Durant, like Bobby said, sometimes basketball is just that simple. Turns out, the Bucks wouldn't have won the championship without Giannis. But they had Giannis. Like that's the whole point. Like, Team USA maybe wasn't the like redeem team or the dream team, but they had Kevin Durant. He's just the best player in the world. Like,
done.
And
I also wonder, like when you play basketball and you're used to like having to create your shot, right? Like that's the shot you're used to. You're not used to being wide open, right? That mentally is just different, right? Like if you do a step back and shoot it, you're not thinking at all. Now, if you're just sitting there waiting for the ball to come to you and you're wide open and you're not used to it since maybe college, like that has to do something. Like if you miss one, you think about it more the next shot, I would think, in my opinion.
Yeah, Bobby, I think you're totally right. Like there were players that are used to being creators or the gravity of their team, and they're out of rhythm when they're trying to play as part of a complement. Aaron, to your point, I thought that Kevin Durant was great, right? And when he wasn't in the game, it really was an upset for the team. But and while we didn't get some of our stars in the U.S., we still had great players who were over there. And it didn't seem like anybody was able to take over other than Kevin Durant, you know? And what I usually look forward to in Team USA is just the onslaught of talent. Even if we're blowing out a team, it's just like, somebody coming off the bench, like Kobe Bryant coming off the bench and just smashing, in Beijing. And you're just like, oh yeah, this is just great because we're going to watch a layup line or a dunk factory and it's going to be super enjoyable. And I just couldn't believe, Drew Holiday
taking all those shots. Awesome though.
He was
times,
great. His defense was
out of control, right?
out of control. But then you're like, wait, why is he taking all these shots when you have these, offensive magicians, that are hanging out and not, where was Dame? Where was Booker although I really appreciated that when his shots weren't falling, Booker was trying to penetrate, get fouls or, to dish. But I was like, oh, come on, any other player take over and really kind of put your mark on this game. We don't need to wait for Kevin Durant to, come back in the game too.
See, I think it was a little bit about just the physicality of it too. I think that, and I actually really, I don't know how you guys felt, but I really enjoyed just watching a more physical game. And I'm hoping that maybe that gets brought back a little bit in the NBA, because I think that it was fun to watch that and to watch them bump a little more and to watch the guys look exasperated after they don't get a call and then actually
looking at the refs,
and the refs don't care. They're like, what do you want? What are you gonna do about it? That's how the refs are supposed to be.
I mean, I think maybe it might get a little bit more physical, but they're not going to let it get too much because, offense sells. Let's be honest. That's what people want to see. They want to see points scored. Yeah. They don't want to see somebody blocking somebody. They, or somebody bodying up somebody. They missing a jumper fail. They want to see the step back where nobody touches them, and they hit. Their hands in their face, but they hit it.
Do they?
Yeah. I think the young fans. That's what they want to see.
Viewership's down.
They want
a crazy amount.
Well, I think that has to do with a lot of things.
Well,
other than basketball.
Ultimately, it's about the product on the court, right?
Well, it is.
If people aren't wanting to watch what you put on the court, then you need to change something. I'm just throwing it out as something that I enjoyed watching as a consumer of the sport.
I don't think
watching the way that the game was played internationally.
I don't think the players or the fans want to go back to watching the Detroit Pistons 90-point games. That's not what they want.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not saying. Come on, you just took it to one extreme to another. All offense, or we got to go back to a wrestling match.
No, I'm just saying they don't want that.
I liked the international game. The whole point was it was a little more physical.
They changed some rules.
Yeah,
they're trying to eliminate Harden and Trae Young and all their. How they jump into people, which I've always thought that it's ridiculous if a guy jumps and he's going straight up and the other guy just literally throws himself into him and throws the ball up in there and they give him, the foul call.
Yeah.
If anything, call an offensive foul.
Sure.
So.
All right, did you guys see the celebrations? We've got it on screen here. Kevin Durant and Draymond Green getting wild on the back of the bus here. Did you guys see them shouting out LeBron James, Lobos Tequila?
Do you think that was a shout at LeBron?
I don't know. That's what I said.
I bet you it was. He's probably like, go get the monsters, and we'll bring the gold home.
I was dying. I was like, okay, is this? Were they? Did they actually have it, or were they trolling him? Like, oh, nice tequila, LeBron. I don't know. I can't ever tell. I think they were trolling. You think so?
I think so.
Okay.
My favorite part about the video is to try to figure out who, the bus seating order.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Well, they're in the back of the bus, so they're clearly the coolest, right? They're in the back with the tequila. Right. Bring it, guys.
Yeah, right. So it's Draymond Green and KD in the back seat, and then it's Dame and Book in the next seats, and I'm
seems about right.
Yeah.
but Drew Holiday,
who's up front though? That's the other thing. Who's got to sit next to the coaches?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, maybe JaVale McGee's up there.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, he's got to be, right. He's just you got a gold medal. You get the front seat, buddy.
Yeah. And I love JaVale. I know, but he's got his fanny pack on. He's just chilling.
Mom, first in U.S. history, mother and son to have gold medals. His mom's got a gold medal.
That's pretty awesome.
Back to the night, right there. Look at that, guys. All right.
Also,
you go.
Sorry, I was going to say Drew Holiday and his wife also Olympic medalists.
Really?
So
I didn't know
the family.
Yeah. Nice. 4 in a row now. Grant Hill's taken over. What do we think? The future just kind of cemented in gold still for Team USA?
I think it just depends on who decides to play or not. Obviously,
we got
4 more years.
We got Curry could still come back.
Yeah,
he could be back.
Curry would definitely help,
and he probably would come back. Will come back. He might not play as much in the next one because he'll be at the end of his career. But he might be an interesting one for the next Olympics.
I guess who's Luka going to have with him?
Oh,
You know what I mean? Like, is there any other players that are going to be on his team that are going to help him besides this year?
Apparently,
Which is
Kate
him.
Cunningham he needs since he's the next Luka.
Oh, I did not say that. That never came out of my mouth. You said he was slow, and I said Luka's not fast.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
all
see, there
I
you
said.
said it again now. I got you twice.
So the U.S. Olympic team has never done 4 gold in a row. So
Right.
this is like a big, like monumental piece. And
This
it's
is
also
it.
a sea change, right? As Colangelo leaves and Grant Hill takes
Hill.
over. I don't know if you all watched any of so NBC had a documentary kind of doing the behind the scenes.
Oh
for
yeah,
some of
I did
the
see
team.
some of it. Yeah,
And I couldn't tell. I can't wrap my head around Pop's interaction with players, right? Like, so he's walking up and down the court, and like they're doing their stretches, and he's like, "What's the capital of Arkansas?" Right? And somebody names it correctly, and he's like, "Oh, you win. I got to buy you a car." And the player's like, "Oh, really? Great, And I was like, "Is that like authentic, like connection? Like, are they going to go with a college coach, in the future? Like the Villanova coach, seemed to be into it. Like he had his clipboard out. He was like directly coaching players like he would in college,
Right.
and Pop was kind of, like Steve Kerr was kind of a little bit maybe aloof, right? Like kind of let the players gel and figure it out, etc. So I think that will be another deciding factor, right? Is whether or not Team USA can get a coach. And I think this is Pop's last one. So,
is.
who they choose for the head coach and, whether or not that coach can kind of do the difficult task of trying to get all of these superstars to buy into a team concept with such a short runway, So I think, though, Grant Hill will probably be better at that. I think that he has a little bit more of a through line connection. I don't know. We'll
seems like he'd pick a college coach. I think that from what I heard from the kind of reporting on some of the players, that they liked Coach K better because he's not in the league, and almost that one step removed allowed them to kind of confide in him and just view him in a different way. And he didn't press, and the reverse was also true. He didn't kind of press them or worry about what they would think of him either, because he's not going to see them on the court next year. So he could kind of speak his mind and be a little bit more free. So I don't know. It seems like that might be the way to go. But ultimately, I think it's about can he keep the pipeline together, right? Like right now, all the best players are in there, whether they show up or not. I think maybe more might have shown up if things had gone as planned last summer, and I think that it was more a product of just world circumstances rather than anything else.
Yeah, and some of them just wanted to rest.
Yeah, which made sense. It was a
understandable.
crazy 2 years. Like I can't believe. Shout out to Drew Holiday and Middleton and Booker for literally getting on a flight together after the NBA Finals and going to Tokyo and
that's
just
crazy,
balling
right?
out. Like that's wild. Like what a wild couple weeks for them.
I mean, do you think like if that was like the 90s that would have happened?
I mean,
players
probably.
didn't like each other back then. So like, get out of the finals, and then a couple days later, get in a plane with a player that just beat you.
I don't know. I didn't like each other. They didn't know each other in the same way. But it seemed like as soon as you get people of a certain like who are passionate about the same thing in the same room together, you have that like instant connection. Over something. Like you saw all of a sudden Patrick Ewing and Larry Bird are friends. Like I'm sure those guys were not friends prior to the Dream Team, but just throw them together for a couple weeks and they start hanging out and they've got that one big connector and you can kind of find little spider webs out from there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who wouldn't want to fly back with Michael Jordan. Right? Like I think Barkley loses to Jordan. I think he's still flying back because Barkley, is confident.
Yeah, for sure.
But who's riding with Rodman?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Somebody is Malone riding back with Rodman?
Rodman's
after the Bulls beat
Rodman's
the
not getting through the
Jazz?
health and safety protocols. He's definitely out. He's out on that.
I think the mailman is just like in the back. He's sulking.
Yeah.
I think Stockton's like in the front.
Yeah,
just like
definitely
tapping away, ready to get off the plane.
Yeah, he gets the coach's uniform. They forget that he's a player, give him the wrong uniform. So he's got the coach's jumpsuit. Oh, wait, that's right. All right, let's keep it moving. Talk a little NBA free agency, and then we're going to wrap up just talking about the media in basketball a little bit. So, thoughts on free agency. So, I'm going to start out here because my Bulls, I have to say, we're the big winners of free agency. I mean, we got LaMelo, which is going to be awesome on there. There may be some tampering issues that we have to deal with, perhaps, but so be it. So be it. That's kind of I feel like if the NCAA is a farce with their how they weren't paying players, certainly this is kind of ridiculous.
I mean,
ridiculous at this point, right?
I don't know how they could get the Bulls when how many people sign within minutes of free agency going open. I mean, like they're just gonna pick who they want to, and they're gonna. I think, what is it, like a $10 million fine or something? I mean, what's that really going to do to the Bulls? I mean, they're going to be like, oh, okay, that's horrible, but we got the player we wanted. Right. So, I mean, the big picture, they still win, right?
Yeah, they fined the Bucks last year, and they won the championship. So, clearly it doesn't matter. And they didn't even get the player. That's the worst part about the Bucks. They didn't even get him. He went to the Hawks. So
yeah, and they could have used him.
They could have used him, for sure.
Yeah, so Aaron, okay, so you're a Bulls fan.
Oh my gosh,
so they get,
I'm so happy.
So they get Lonzo, they get DeMar DeRozan, right?
Yep.
Great. So some real improvements. They also get Caruso too, which and I think the Lakers are going to miss Caruso
for sure.
But
wait, where's the button there?
Well, I just mean like kind of to what end, right? Here we go. And that's a great. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to. Like, how do you feel about that?
Okay.
How do you rectify the expectations with the moves? It's like they've won the podium, right? They had the most exciting offseason, but then so you have the Nets, the Bucks, and then you just have this kind of like
cluster
onslaught of like pretty similar teams. Right?
See, here's the thing. So for I grew up as a Bulls fan in the '90s, and we just won the championship every year, and I thought that's how it was going to be the rest of my life. Right. Like this is great. I love this. This is how it is the rest of my life. And then I, get to IU, and in my fourth year at IU, we go to the Final Four, and I'm like, oh, okay, every 4 years IU goes to the Final Four. Turns out, 20 years, plus after that, it's not like that. And Derrick Rose blows out his knee after we built a contender, and we've just been in the wilderness with IU several times now. And I just think that there is something to be said for just being competitive. Will this team win the championship? It's unlikely. You could maybe even go to highly unlikely. You need Patrick Williams, the new guy. I almost said Patrick Ewing. Patrick Ewing would be nice, but Patrick Williams to become basically a star, or injuries, right? And I think that there's the probability is they end up a 4, 5, 6 somewhere in there. And maybe get beaten the first round, but it doesn't matter. Like you get to watch fun basketball all year. It's every game. They're going to compete in every single game they're in, whether they're the best in the league or not. You're going to have to show up for the Bulls every night because they've got talented players at every position now. And then they make the playoffs, and who knows, if Durant and Kyrie get hurt and they had faced them in the first round, they probably would have maybe would have had a shot at beating them. And, you just don't know. I think you put yourself out there and at least hope to be competitive all year. And then maybe you get lucky and one of your guys turns into a superstar. And if you don't, at least you have like 5 years where your team's good. Like it stinks to watch. It stunk to be a Bulls fan the last few years and just watch garbage. Like what's the alternative, right? Like you watch, the Duke guy that we had, he's now with the Magic, by the way. Maybe he'll be good someday. Or maybe Carter? He won't. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right. They're like, yeah. I think for a long time, like the thinking was, you definitely didn't want to do what the Bulls have just done, right? Which is that like you would be a low playoff seed and you put yourself on this treadmill of mediocrity, right? That you never get a great draft pick, and then you're always first round, second round fodder. I agree with you. So here are my two like upsides, right? Or three, I guess 3 upsides. Like one is, you saw the Hawks last year and, the Hawks are really building something special, but you would kill to have the Hawks success next year. And it could like, as you just articulated, it could fall that way, so that's number one. Number two is I think you have some nice trade pieces. And so if one of these disgruntled stars become available, it might be the case that you'll be able to trade and package Markkanen plus X, Y, and Z to try to get maybe not the most premier, right? So if Dame and Bradley Beal and Simmons all become available, right? Then you might not get Dame right away, but you might get one of the other guys.
Sounds good.
Which would be great, right? Because I think you have some pieces to send. And then the third thing is, I think you're totally right. Every team must have watched the Knicks last year and just said,
that looks fun, right?
Yeah, right.
Wow, that looks
our
great.
fans are going nuts. They're not even the best team in our city.
Yeah.
And in the Garden, for getting blown out, in five games, the playoff atmosphere looked electric.
Yeah.
You wanted to be there, So I think that having that excitement, especially after the last 2 years that we've had, I think that that's going to be a win. And I think that's something worth
huge
investing
win.
in. So that's exciting.
I mean, I think that with the Bulls, that you're pretty young, so they could build up like the Hawks. Like you mentioned, the Hawks, they're young too. Like they can get better as the years go, and then hopefully, for a Bulls fan, I'm not, but hopefully that when the Nets
just want to get that out there.
and
I don't care.
they're no longer together, then you'll have a chance. I mean, if the Nets don't get hurt, I mean, did they have Mills? Is that who they added this offseason?
Yeah, they added Patty Mills.
I mean that. If they're not hurt, they ain't losing. Let's be honest. They're not losing if they're not hurt.
If they don't get hurt, what are the chances that someone on that team won't get hurt this year? I'd say those are as small as the chances that the Bulls are going to be really good this year. Like I don't think that every year, if you look back the last past 5 years, every single guy on that team has been hurt. Durant tore his Achilles. Kyrie's done his knee, his ankle, his knee, and James Harden's got a weird hamstring now, and they're all over 30. They got Blake Griffin. Good Lord. He's had about 9 million injuries.
They ain't paying him nothing, though.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, you're saying if they're healthy, what are the chances they're going to be healthy?
What if they trade Irving and get Ben Simmons? And then they have Patty Mills starting at point guard.
I mean,
that would be ridiculous, wouldn't it? Power forward Simmons.
I'll tell you right now, that's
ain't
not
losing.
happening. No,
What do you mean?
Because Kyrie and KD are boys. They're not going to do that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, unless KD finally says, "Hey,
I've had enough.
I'm tired of this." It's over.
Go ahead. Go play with
Ghost in the Dark, Ghost in the Darkness style there. Just stab you in the back. I don't know. By the way, you guys have both been traded. I've got 2 other guests coming in right now.
That's right. That's right. Bobby and I are going to play for the Bucks.
The team he was talking about earlier, the Knicks. Sorry.
Yeah.
They had a pretty good offseason too.
Yeah.
I mean, they got Walker, they got Fournier, right? So for their team, they were the 4th seed last year, right? So they got better. I mean, they didn't get worse. So I mean, are the Bulls better than the Knicks?
I think they could be. I mean, like I said, it's just one injury away. I think that the Knicks are probably, you'd say to start the season, you'd rank them higher just because of where they sat last season. But, what if Randall goes down for 20 games,
Yeah, but what if Toppins gets better and quickly?
Yeah, no, it could be. Like you said, after the Bucks and Nets, I think that it's kind of a jumble. 3 through 8 is probably.
I mean, what about Miami?
Could be just health.
Did Miami get better?
For sure. Yeah, they
for sure.
They landed the biggest free agent out there, right?
Who?
Lowry is the biggest.
Yeah,
guy
but
out there.
I mean, I think you underestimate how good Dragic was. He's a pretty good point guard, so it isn't like they had a bum a point guard.
Sure, but they can get better. They can grow through just getting older too. They got Hero, who's super young. They re-signed their shooter.
What was Miami this year? Were
they were 6, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, the question is the Hawks Miami the year before? Are they going to fall down now?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't see it.
I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the East, and I think what you're both saying is true, right? Is that the favorites in the East are unsettled, right? We don't know. The Nets were scary in the first round, and if they maintain that core, good luck to everyone else in the East. But we don't know what they're going to settle like in the 82 game season, or I guess it'll be 70 games. I'm not sure this year what they're going to do. But so we'll see that settling. The Bucks eked past the Nets, with just KD, and you don't know if we have the start of a dynasty, right? Are the Bucks going to rip off 2 more in a row, or are they going to win one like the Pistons and just kind of never make it back? We're not
It's hard to
We're
tell,
not
but
sure.
there is a confidence after you win one, I think, that you carry yourself a little bit differently.
If Giannis starts making all his free throws,
I know,
starts hitting the jump
exactly.
shot, it could be.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't bet against him.
Let's talk a little bit about the West. Who you guys like out there? Since we haven't even, it's funny that we went this long because usually it's the Western Conference that everyone talks about first. But I think that says something about the East that it is gotten a lot stronger the last couple of years.
It is a lot stronger. I mean, for me, the Lakers has got to be the winners for the West. But like, I've never been
It's a weird team,
huge Westbrook fan. Like, I think he's an unbelievable player, and maybe though he's never really played with a good big guy, right? I mean, who's the best guy he's played with?
I guess Ibaka.
Yes,
But that's not Anthony Davis
or Steven Adams.
but that's not. It's not like Embiid or, I think it could be really interesting to see how him and Anthony Davis play together. Like the screen and rolls and stuff. Like, and it'd take a lot off LeBron. Like, so maybe by having Westbrook, that LeBron can kind of coast during the regular season and be more fresh for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because Westbrook isn't going to take off. Like, he's going to be 100% every game, until his legs fall off. So, and then I think Carmelo. He's not Carmelo, obviously the name that used to be, but he's not horrible, and he brings.
I wonder if
something
people
to
say
the
that
table.
about me. Aaron, he's not the guy he's used to be.
Well, that's
but
not-
he still looks. He looks sort of the same.
He's still
It's
ridiculous.
got to be tough though. Like imagine being Mello, just hearing that.
I think Melo's just happy to be in the league. No, I don't mean I don't mean it in a bad way.
Shots
I'm
fired.
saying that because they blackballed him for like 2 years, he's just happy to be back.
Did they or did he do that to himself?
No, he did because he wanted to be a superstar still,
Right.
and he wasn't a superstar anymore. And then it took 2 years to humble him to say, okay, I'll just shoot threes and play a little defense so I can keep playing basketball.
Maybe just the shoot threes part.
Yeah.
I think I think you're right, Bobby. I think the Lakers are the favorite, right? And but like the favorites in the East, there's a lot of uncertainty there, a lot of settling, right?
Definitely.
Like is it going to work with Brody? Is Anthony Davis going to start doing that killer instinct, or is he going to be like New Orleans, kind of passe, injured, Anthony Davis that we've kind of seen? At first, when they picked up Russell Westbrook, I thought they were trying to do it for the regular season, right? Russell Westbrook won a ton of games for the Wizards and got them, into the play-in, and then they were able to get in the 8th seed and actually be in the playoff series, right? But then I was thinking about this, and I was like, I don't know. I don't know that LeBron is at a point in his career, and I think he demonstrated that in Cleveland, where he wasn't so concerned about seeding, right? Like, we'll take whatever seed. We have the best team. Everybody has to go through us, even if we're not playing in Los Angeles for a majority of the games. So I don't know if that makes sense. I was thinking about, though, Bobby, I think you're totally right. I think he's going to, be intense. He's going to play out there. I think Vogel can really figure out when to play him. And in the playoffs, though, so I think maybe they got him for the playoffs, and this idea that, really in each series, you need Russell Westbrook to have like 6 great quarters, right? And that would be a plus for your team, right? Just quarters where he can take over, where if LeBron seems out of sync or Davis is, kind of struggling to find his footing, he can really shore up the scoring and then keep them in a game so that one of those two can then take over in the fourth quarter. So I think that will be the strategy. It'll be great to see, because, there's no back down between Bron and Russell Westbrook, but I hear that they're boys, and I'm excited. It makes me like the Lakers just a little bit more. I don't really like the Lakers at all, but I really like Russell Westbrook. So, I hope that he kills it, and I hope that he wins a championship. And I think if he does, he'll be kind of like Rondo when the Lakers won last time. He'll, make some really significant contributions, and you'll think that he was part of it.
Energy's a talent.
Well, I think he's still at a higher level though than Rondo was. I'm not saying anything bad about Rondo. Rondo at this point in his career, Rondo was really good. I'm just saying he's older now.
He still looks the same, but
Yeah, he just doesn't move as fast.
yeah.
Absolutely. But he was also not a nothing, in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Oh no,
And
he was
he
huge.
shot
Rondo was
him.
really good in the playoffs.
The one thing I've heard about Westbrook that will be most interesting to see is that, Rondo's willing to humble himself and not shoot sometimes. And Westbrook to your point about Melo, has never been willing to do that. He's always been the guy that's got a bunch of shots. So can he humble himself enough to say like, all right, Bron and Anthony Davis are getting the majority of the shots. I'm third in line. Like that's going to be tough for him to swallow.
I would
He's
think
he's
though
third
that,
on that team, right?
I would say Washington was probably very humbling to him.
I mean, he
He realizes that
like
this is his time. I mean, it isn't like he's playing with anybody. I mean, he's playing with LeBron, possibly one of the greatest players to ever play. And Anthony Davis, if he stays healthy, could possibly be one of the greatest players to ever play. Like, it's not like he's playing with two guys that are,
Yeah, but he's the only other guy
maybe
on that team
the eighth player
he's the
in the
only guy
league.
with the MVP on that team besides LeBron. AD doesn't have an MVP.
Yeah, but if he
So I'm
plays,
not- I'm just saying, I wouldn't think like that if I was him. I'd be like, hey, you got to show me something. Like,
yeah, but he
it's not
wants
the
that
other way
chip, though.
around.
I'm sure he wants the chip because he's
Well,
tired of hearing the critics.
Yeah, maybe, but maybe he thinks like it's him and LeBron that are the ones that need to carry him there.
I mean, I was really intrigued by them getting Monk and the guy
that
from
was
my
ridiculous.
what was the guy
I
from
was so mad
Miami?
about that.
The backup point guard.
None. Yeah.
I mean, them
Furious.
two players, I'm not excited because I'm not a Laker fan, but if I was a Laker fan, I'd be more excited about those two players at the price they got them at.
Oh man.
Like, that's a good bench to come off. Like, Monk started playing really good at the end of the year last year.
Yeah.
Like, for them to get him for what they got him for was a steal.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, to get both players at the minimum, and especially because then there's a lot less pressure to get these buyout guys. You can be a little choosier with your last spots. Absolutely, I totally agree, Bobby.
You'll see other people everyone always gets excited about the guys at the minimum, and then there's a reason they're the guys at the minimum.
That's right. Yeah. Miami let him walk.
Dennis Schroeder turned down $84 million. I bet he's wishing he'd. I'm betting he's wishing he didn't do that.
Hey, the Celtics are winners there. They got him for a steal.
They did.
It was like $5.9 million. Like, he has to be just like.
Does his agent fire him or does he fire his agent?
I'm pretty sure he's firing that agent.
The agent had to have been telling him though, take the $84 million, Dennis.
I don't think so.
If I'm the agent, I get what is that, 10% of that? I'm telling him, take the $84 million, Dennis.
I don't know.
You're good. He's not telling him hold out for 100, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, when he was on the Hawks, I bet you he was like, "Oh no, I don't think Schroeder's going to be in the league much longer."
Yeah,
and now he's just like, "We're just playing with house money, Dennis. Whatever you want."
Yeah.
I guess. Oh man. Yeah. All right, guys, let's wrap up here. This is the one for me. So I had you guys read this. Franchise Magazine put out this old article it's called The Basketball Article, and we'll link it in the show notes. But the sort of point of this topic was, besides reading that and seeing what you guys thought of that, is just the state of sports journalism, essentially. I was just fascinated reading this. It was two female journalists that went out and just kind of did this experiential. I think I forget the name of it. Did you guys remember what the name of it was? The way they wrote field poetics, they called it. So I thought that was like just a fascinating way to read about people watching basketball. And I don't understand why in the draft and everything becomes this monoculture. It's like, this has to be the top 4 picks in the draft. Like, why? Every single year we're wrong about the top 4 picks in the draft. So why does everyone then say these are the top 4 picks in the draft? Like, go outside the box.
I
Same
think
thing
though,
with writing.
I just thought about this. I think it's because they want to control the narrative. The NBA does. So they don't allow for the stuff like this. Because think about, here's a good example, right? Like, I just watched the documentary on the Untold Story, right, of the Malice and the Palace.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't talk about the players. Like, they just talked about them going, they talked about the fan side, right? Like, them going in there. They didn't talk about how the players had to go to court and that they got chairs thrown at them and all that stuff. Like, the NBA didn't want to take the side of the players. And if you had journalists that would have took the side of the players, then the fans don't want to hear that. They want to hear the other way, right? Because they see that at that point, they saw the players as being wrong no matter what, right? Because they make millions of dollars. They should be able to control themselves. And a lot of fans can't look at the side that they're human beings, right? That's just the way fans work, right? Like, nobody hardly ever looks at if somebody dies in somebody's family and then they have a bad game, well, they should have been able to push through it. You get what I mean? Like fans don't want to know that side of the story. They only want to know, hey, go in and put the ball in the basket. And they the NBA doesn't want to. They don't want to show different sides. Like they want to control it all, right? You get what I mean? So if they let people go in and tell stories, then maybe they tell stories about Jordan that people don't want to know, like the NBA doesn't want to know about because they want to keep his name so good. I'm just using Jordan as a reference. I'm not saying that he's horrible. And I'm just saying like,
don't get us blackballed.
We're just saying like, yeah, exactly. We'll just say like LeBron, like maybe there's some stories that these journalists would have said about LeBron, but they don't want that out in public, right? Like they want LeBron's name to be this good husband, you know, they want the narrative to be he's this amazing person no matter what. Whatever he says, he's still amazing, right? Because
sure, but
that's
no one gave these two women the permission to go out there and report on this for years. Like I don't know, I don't get it.
But what hasn't happened since?
Well, that's sort of
what I'm telling you. Like they probably shut it down. They were probably like, who's going to pay for this? Like, you know what I mean? Like newspapers got to pay for it, or somebody's got to pay for it. People just don't. And back then, I mean, there wasn't social media.
Yeah.
I mean, now you could probably post stuff, but I mean, unless you got, like we were talking about the influencer thing, unless you have a bunch of followers, but then again, like if say that you were really popular and you posted something, just as an example about LeBron, right? And then LeBron comes out and says something bad, maybe a bunch of people that like LeBron stop following you. So you have to watch what you say because people could turn it and twist it to make it sound like, you know, you're the one in the wrong. You know, so I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, Bobby, I think your hypothesis about censorship is interesting. And I wonder if the driver there is maybe I wonder if it's the NBA or if it's these large sports platforms, right? Like ESPN or Fox Sports that want to keep basketball, consumable, digestible to a broad, audience. And that might be why we don't see so much, what do I want to say? Like,
you said gonzo journalism.
Different coverage. Different coverage, right? So to give the listener a little bit more perspective, right? So Bernadette Mayer and Ann Waldman in 1975 covered the Nets for a season because they didn't get permission to cover the Knicks, right? And so Aaron will add a link to this article, and I would suggest any listener to read this because it was this real breath of fresh air reading this kind of long narrative piece about where kind of the length of the season, the experience of watching players, and then kind of the collision between American society, and then also too we see the authors really using positionality, talking about their identities and how it interacts with their reporting coverage and experience on the court. I wonder, and Bobby, you mentioned social media, because I think we do see some sort of these, and I hate to use the word disruptors, right? Because it's so popular in the tech world, but we do see some of these media forms that, have kind of taken over, right? So you think about like House of Highlights, for example, right? Is a huge, organization, right? And they've taken advantage of the NBA's, kind of lack of, censorship, right? Like when it comes to footage, the NBA wants influencers or organizations to use the highlights so that they can then connect with a diverse audience, and specifically, right, a younger audience that might not be as cutting cords and not going to ESPN, but is going to Instagram or TikTok, right, to connect with players. I think about NBA Desktop on the Ringer, right, which I think is like really innovative, or I guess now no longer with the Ringer. Jason Concepcion and the company are doing it on all caps with another media company, and but that was really like innovative, this idea of, okay, so how do we do sports coverage in a different way? How do we have guests who are interesting but not talking heads per se, and we kind of just joke around with them? How do we do more of a kind of a fuse with not just the play on the court, but then obviously with social media as well? So I think we see some of that disruption, but I think it's interesting that a group like the Ringer, after Concepcion's left, and maybe it's just that $1 million idea doesn't come along, or a disruption idea doesn't come along that you can immediately replicate. But their model has moved to more traditional talking head podcasts, and they're doing less of this, kind of disruptive or, gonzo journalism.
Well, they got purchased by Spotify too. So they've got investors that they have to report to. They've become ESPN, right?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess maybe it'll be interesting to see what Meadowlark Media does, like Dan Lebertart's company, if they do some of this, like just hiring college kids to kind of tour around. And to kind of write a little bit more. I don't know.
Like Barstool Sports, maybe they're doing some like games this year where they're like hosting the game, I guess. They're not exactly like, I don't know that I'd hold them out there as like the epitome of where I'd like to see it go, but I think it is at least a different lens to see sports. And I think that there should be room for just different groups to get in there. I mean, I just liked that they just took the idea and expressed what they were seeing on the court in a different way. And I mean, I think we're saying like, oh, this is what sells. But then the three of us who are huge basketball fans read this, and it was put out, decades after it first came out by an somewhat influential magazine that is, out there in pop culture, kind of, resurfacing pictures and ideas from years ago. So I think there has to be some space in the creative landscape for these types of, for this type of journalism. But I just don't know why there isn't more of it, or why people starting out, this feels like where they should go, right? Like you said, taking the chance. This is where the chances are, right? Get out there and be weird, right? Like Concepcion was. Yeah.
I think that for it to happen to an extent to where it sticks a little bit, I think it has to be people that don't have anything to lose. Right. Like kind of like, I don't know if you guys have watched any of Kwame Brown's videos or anything, but I mean, that's kind of what you're talking about. Like that's like the other part of that they don't talk about. Like the media totally just destroyed this 18-year-old kid that made it out of the lower poverty and made it big. And instead of being like, hey, look what this guy did, they were like, this guy's a bum.
Right.
God, he's worthless. Why is he even here? Like he's ruined everything. Like he was supposed to help Jordan and he's ruined, like to the point to where, years after he's already out of the league, they're still calling him a bum. And he was in the league for what? It was like 12 years or something. I can't remember what it was off my head. But like to the point to where if you're playing in the league for that long, you're not a bum. Like, let's get it straight. Like if you're playing in the NBA, you're one of the best players in the world. You might not be, a superstar in the NBA, but if you're in the NBA, there's a lot of players that are playing foreign leagues, playing everywhere else that would love to be where you're at, so like, but, like the media has to sell that because the fans want a certain percentage of the fans don't want to look at the personal side of the players. They just want to know, they just want to talk about what they perform, right? So that's why I don't know if there's really an outlet for it.
No, I understand. I guess so. My thing is like I understand why that is out there. Like I understand like why there gets to be a consensus and that helps to like amplify certain voices and lift up the narrative and create popular culture. Right. I get that. But what I'm saying is why is that alternative stream not out there? Like, I mean, maybe it will be. This is kind of, I could throw this to you guys. Like if I'm the next number one pick, when Cade Cunningham turns out to be a bum, is he gonna get his own podcast? Cause he could pay me, salary and we could start up a podcast about why he's not a bum. Like Kwame Brown's got going. I'm just saying like they can control their own narrative now where you could get your own reporters to create a different story about yourself, to say, look, well, I might not be the number one pick, but blah, 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 blah. Like tell that story, like you said about Kwame, that he's doing for himself now. I mean, he could have done, whoever it is could do that. They could step into that.
Maybe they're worried about their next contract. You're saying like whenever they're finally out, they can do it. But if they're in there and say that they are a borderline player, right? Like, if they become that player that talks about the other side, then maybe teams don't pick them up.
Part of the machine, you can't.
You know what I mean? Like if you're in the machine, you can't say anything because it's kind of like the Kaepernick thing, right? Like like if you say something and you're borderline, then maybe you don't. Nobody wants to deal with that because they don't want to deal with that media with their team. They want to only deal with that distraction isn't worth it to them, right? Unless you're so good,
That makes sense.
then it's worth it, right? If you're a superstar, you could probably get away with it.
Yeah.
But if you're a role player, they're like, well, I mean, I can find role players. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I do.
Aaron, to your point about thinking about authors, writing more journalism like this, I think we should probably also recognize, right, that like Mayer and Waldman also weren't successful in selling this, right? So it wasn't like an immediate pickup.
Yeah.
I wonder if, it's
weird that it's even survived, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's awesome. I can't wait for listeners to read this. And I think to Bobby's point too, is that authors, writers, right, like need to get an initial stake just to fund the experience. Right. And so kind of thinking about those models, right? So is that, working for a blog? Is that like a Deadspin model, right, where you're getting paid, per article, or with the gig economy, right? Like if somebody has a vision like this, where they want to, essentially, replicate or try to speak in tandem, with the basketball article, maybe they could do a GoFundMe and get fans to, like.
You're saying there should be a GoFundMe for journalism. What was it?
We should get a GoFundMe for podcasts.
There we go. Yeah,
man, it's called Patreon. They already did that.
Yeah. Put my Venmo right at the bottom.
Here's my name. They did that on the last assembly call. That the guy they had down in the Bahamas, they gave out his Venmo on the YouTube channel, and people were sending him money for drinks. It was great.
That's a good deal. That's what we need to do.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. What else you got? You guys got anything else on this this topic?
Yeah, could I read a passage that I thought was kind of was in parallel with today's basketball?
For sure.
So in it, the authors say, in American institution, there is no pleasure admitted except competition. We watch the men play and say what we want without fear of technicals. We watch them on TV and do what we want. We curse the referees and yell at the Celtics. You have sticks up your asses. And I thought there was like a lot of parallel here about, kind of what Bobby was saying about crafting a narrative and the ways in which, Disney and, by extension, ESPN wants to craft narratives of wholesome players, right? And then also, too, this idea of like yelling at referees and yelling at basketball players, like that's still prevalent as we see. Yeah. Fans after the pandemic dumping stuff on players and feeling like
spitting on them.
Right. Feeling like the ticket just allows you to do whatever you want, So it was interesting to see in the 70s, these parallel issues or dynamics, are still common in today's game.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, the fans just sometimes they take it to the next level. The fans do pay for the players, but really it's the TV contracts that are the biggest thing now. Mm-hmm. Like. Obviously, the merchandise, filling the stadiums up is a big part of it too. But that's where, like, maybe the journalism would help, right? Like, if you had a real personal background of people. But, again, do the players really want people to know them? I mean, you want your privacy too, like if, you don't want somebody following you and telling everybody about your life, right?
I think there's like a weight there, right?
Yeah. It's kind of it have to be a balance.
I wouldn't want that.
I wouldn't want somebody, coming in and trying to talk to my kids or, like.
So I've heard this. This is the trade-off though, right? Like if you get to make $250 million, you're giving something up. Like that's the sort of the social contract that you're making that you are giving that up. And what players right now, and I think that they're rebelling against this. In some ways, they're saying, well, I can say whatever I want. I'm allowed to express myself. And they're right. Like that is true. And I do feel that they should be able to do that. But what they're also not maybe they do realize this and they don't care, but what is also true is that by expressing themselves and expressing views that the fans may not hold, they may ultimately hurt future generations of stars. I think they're locked in, right? If I'm LeBron, I can say anything I want, but it doesn't mean that by him doing what he wants, it doesn't mean that it won't eventually, have a deleterious effect on the overall revenue of the NBA, right? That may not be what the culture decides they want. It won't affect him because he's at the end of his career and he's made his money and he's a billionaire already. But other future guys might be affected by that.
It could be the demise of the NBA for the fact of, at this point, like if this would have happened in the past, they would have made rules, right? Now, if they would make a rule and say, listen, we want you just to talk about basketball, like you're on a platform, we don't want to influence,
Right.
Either way, like players will bring it to social media and there's no way they can stop it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they can't blackball everybody that's playing, right? Because it makes too much money. So, like, I don't see the way the NBA can try to control a little bit of what the players, say, as far as off topic, not about basketball, but, anything else. So I don't really know. And to your point is right. Like the future players are going to see these players and then they're probably going to hold back even less, right? They're going to be like, well, I'm going to come in and I don't care about a dress code, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. I really don't care. What are they going to do?
Yeah. I think, Bobby, you're probably right that like we're not going to say the same amount of censorship. I'm glad you brought up the dress code because I thought the same thing. I also watched the Mouse in the Palace documentary, and right, like thinking about how Stern, tried to.
I didn't realize it was that close to like right after it, like that.
Immediate effect, right? Like,
interesting.
We're going to change the image, right?
Yeah,
and I think that there are players that are making business decisions, though, right? Like, so while a lot of players have protested and for domestic social issues, right? A lot of players were really silent about international Chinese human rights issues, right? As they see, their shoe deal contracts are connected with Chinese business. I really like it, and Aaron, I know we've talked about this. I go around in circles with Kyrie all the time, but I liked last year when he said, like, I don't want to do media stuff. Like, I just want to focus on basketball. But he knew he was going to get fined, right? And it's like I'll give that part of the money back, right? Because I won't make the deal, and if you're a fan, I know like some fans will say, oh, Kyrie doesn't want to play the media game. But it's like, if I'm a fan, I'm like, great, that guy just wants to focus on basketball. Like, like I would love if players were like, I don't care about, I want to shut off distractions and I just want to focus on winning,
It definitely, I think it's definitely something that will continue to come up, just the evolution of sports. And I think that this, it's interesting to see how we think that so much has changed, but I think this is a good perspective too, to look back like several decades and see like, there's a lot that's still, it's still the same, a lot of the same issues that we grapple with. And, the lens on the court can be more similar sometimes than we think it can be.
One of let's end it with this. Do you guys think that by these players, we'll go back to the NIL, right?
Okay.
Do you think that by these players making money earlier, that changes the way they are when they get to the NBA? Like their approach, you know what I mean? Like now, like besides making it and to the NBA, that's where you hit it, right? Like now you're hitting it earlier, right? So does that change your perspective once you get to the league?
I think it's great, actually. I think that the one thing that I can say almost for certainty is that the players, when they get to the NBA, they seem more adept, media savvy. They seem more composed. They carry themselves. Josh has often told that funny story about Glenn Robinson leaving his Player of the Year trophy just on the deck of his apartment, and he gets that $84 million and, up front, and how that ruined a lot of guys where you get it right away. And now they are earning it, but they're creating their own brand, something that they own, that they're in control of. And that means that they also have to, be responsible to then the brand that they've created. You can't just like say, well, I got this guaranteed money coming, I can do what I want. Like you have to maintain that image to keep the money coming in.
How many players do you think are going to get lost because they get money before maybe they're prepared to get the money? You get what I mean? Like you got 18-year-olds that didn't come from money, right? And they get this money in college. Like maybe if they didn't get the money, they would have worked hard for 2 or 3 years and made it to the league. And now you're getting the money and then you're maybe doing things that you shouldn't be doing because, we all been 18, 19, 20-year-olds and we don't make the best decisions when we're that age, just to be honest. Yeah. So give us some money and it's probably even worse.
I don't know.
It might work the other way though. Like it might alleviate some pressure, right? Like now, so if you have people in your circle, your family, friends that are, relying on you to make it to the pros, like, and you have like this sum to begin with, you can take care of those needs and focus on kind of the long game of becoming a professional success rather than, I think you see a lot of when college was maybe more amateur, you might see players kind of melting down. When they get to college, it's a lot harder. They're settling in. They're not getting as much play time as they're used to. And then suddenly they're like, hey, I might not get drafted, right? Like I might not be one of the 60 players who gets drafted. And then they fizzle out, you know, whereas, if you get some of the money at the start, you might be able to say and trust your coach a little bit to say, hey, eventually, right? Maybe you should stay a little bit longer. Yeah. You'll get more playing time. You'll be a more polished product and you can go to the draft. There's not that immediate, I need to get in the draft, even if I'm going to fall so many spots because I have to support my system. And that's not true. I guess I want to poke a hole or say that's not the stereotype that all players come from needs-based backgrounds, but that might be the case for quite a few.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just I view it as opportunity. I think that the negative, the downside of it, I feel like is in the way that we look at the athletes. I think it will change our perspective on them more than anything else by becoming more personal with athletes. It's good and bad, right? I think that, and it also changes that focus, shifts that focus away from school to individuals. Like there's something that I like about that in the NBA, because I'll watch the NBA even when the Bulls have been terrible. So I might be more interested in more college basketball teams, but that also might mean that if I don't, if the IU guys are not, maybe it shifts my allegiances into more of college basketball overall rather than, or following a specific player if he transfers. What if my favorite guy at IU transfers to some other school? and I felt like I built up this camaraderie by watching all his videos, and I'm like, man, this guy's awesome. Like he's just fun to watch. I don't know if that would apply as much for us since we're kind of locked in, but I think certainly for the younger audience, I could definitely see how that could happen for them.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the only thing I think we're looking at it from a perspective of, we're older now. So we look at it like the way that we would do it.
You look the
and
same.
And not the way 18-year-old Robert would do it. I think if you went back to 18-year-old Robert.
So you're saying Carmelo on the Lakers.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right.
It was good, though.
I'm going to get us out of here.
Good times.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening to the 19-9 podcast. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, make sure you do. And while you're at it, leave us a rating or review. 5 stars only, like the basketball camp. We also have links to all of 19-9 social media so you never miss a release. Until next time.